She is a first generation college graduate, first generation American, daughter of Guatemalan immigrants, English language learner, and a parent of a heart hero. She received her bachelor's degree from UC Santa Barbara with a double major in global studies and classics and a minor in applied psychology. You were busy in undergrad. So thank you for joining us today, Ingrid.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Thank you for the introduction. Oh, nice. Jackie, Guatemalan. Yay. Chapina. Thank you for the introduction, Denise. Thank you for having me here. And Ram, thank you guys so much for inviting me to be here. I was very honored when Denise asked me. And so I'm excited to share my story. I didn't think I actually had one, but I'm glad that you asked. So again, yes, my name is Ingrid. As Denise mentioned, I was born in LA. I was born and raised in LA, but my parents are Guatemalan. So they immigrated from Guatemala in the 80s. And resided in LA, and that's where I was born and raised. Or I guess I was born in LA, then moved to San Fernando Valley. I'm from North Hollywood. So if you guys are familiar with that area, I'm 818, and I haven't switched my cell phone number. I'm still 818, even though I'm here in Lompoc now. So I do live in Lompoc. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Santa Barbara or Santa Barbara County, but I'm an hour north of Santa Barbara. I'm a UCSB graduate, so I did go to UC Santa Barbara, which is why I ended up in Lompoc, even though I really didn't know about Lompoc until much later, and you guys will hear more about that. It's my husband and my son. My son is 4 years old. He's actually going to be 5 in a couple of weeks now. He's going to kindergarten. Super proud of him. He's supposed to be in preschool, but he's actually doing so well that they moved him to kindergarten. So that's a nice little accomplishment that I'm proud of. And we do have our business. It's called Valley Auto Glass. We replace and repair windshields, back glass, door glasses on our cars. My husband is a technician, and I am the one that takes care of the background. So I do the scheduling, answer the phone calls, give out the quotes, take care of the bookkeeping stuff. So where do I start? From the very beginning. My parents, again, they're Guatemalan. My mom worked as a housekeeper, or she cleaned homes. My dad was a driver. That really is what he works in, driver, but he worked in different positions. He would drive candies, then he started driving clothing to different like boutiques, and then he did medicine and will deliver to different pharmacies. So my dad was a driver. That's what my dad was, and still is. And my mom used to clean homes. And they also were managers, apartment building managers. So they worked a lot. They sacrificed a lot. My sister was then born shortly after they got the manager position. We got free rent. So they really tried their best to, to really keep that management position, even though it meant having 2 daughters and working their 8 to 5 job. And I helped out a lot by taking care of my sister. So I remember I was the one mixing the formula in the bottles and giving her food and making her PB&J while my parents were out taking care of the apartment buildings and cleaning them or getting them ready to get rented, or they participate in meetings. So I remember helping out a lot. And I remember my parents not being around a lot. And because of that, or despite the fact that my parents were not around that much, they still were very strict. And so I wanted a little bit of freedom. And I couldn't even go to basketball games or soccer games in high school because they were so strict. So I decided to trick them. So I started participating in, I attended clubs. And so I was part of the school council and this other club, and I became the treasurer. And I became the secretary for it, and I got very involved. And so I would tell my parents, well, I'm the treasurer. I need to go and sell the tickets at the basketball game. So you guys are going to have to let me go. And they did. And so that's how I got a little bit of freedom that way. But little did I know that participating in these clubs were really going to give me and help me be where I was going to be later on. And so those extracurricular activities really put me out there in the map. So when I applied for colleges, it looked good. It looked good in my curriculum that I participated in these things. So, and also speaking about college, I really didn't know about college. My parents didn't push me to go to college. While I was in a club, I had to go put up flyers about this event. I think it was donating blood, I think it was. And I decided to open this door to what was the Career Counseling Center. And I spoke very briefly to a career counselor, and she asked me if I wanted to make an appointment to speak further about college. And I was like, all right, I guess. And I did. And that's when I learned about college. It was towards the end of 11th grade when it happened. So I really wasn't preparing for college, and I didn't know what it was. My parents didn't know what it was. In fact, I don't even think my dad thought I was even going to graduate high school, even though I was a straight A student. So yeah, I did learn college by accident. Really, I didn't really know that there was higher education. And so when I learned that, I realized that I wanted to keep going because I liked school. I was a straight A student. I graduated with a 4.3 GPA to be exact from high school. I gave our high school graduation speech. So I was very much involved in school, and I liked learning. So I'm like, I want to go to college. Plus, I also, to be honest, wanted to get away from home and wanted to leave and didn't want the responsibility of, what an older sibling did and taking care of my sister and dealing with my parents' struggles and their stresses. And so I thought college was a way out. So I applied for college, and thankfully I did get accepted, and I got accepted to UCSB. During those times while I was applying for college, I also learned in asking questions, talking to the school counselors, that I can apply for more things. And there was this program called the EOP program, in which, if you were a low income first generation, you could participate in that program. And within that program, there was also the STEP program, which was the summer, now I forgot the name of it, Summer Transition Enrichment Program, which gave us an opportunity to really taste how it would be to be in college. So again, everything just happened by me asking questions. I started applying for these things, and that gave me an opportunity to do this, and then etc. So I went to college. I started this STEP program where it gave me a 2-week, I stayed in the dorms for 2 weeks, and I was able to go to classes and really get the taste of it. And I got scared. Even though it was just a STEP program, I was like, what am I doing? I'm away from home. Here I am, a 4.0 student, but I thought the classes were hard. So I got cold feet in the beginning. Thankfully, though, I met people, and that is how I met Denise, through that program too. And so it gave me some type of encouragement that, okay, maybe I could do this. And there was no turning back, obviously. I had given already, we had paid for the first semester already. So I kind of had to keep on going. And I went to college, first generation. Again, like I told you guys, I didn't know about college. My family didn't know about college. I think my parents got a lot of like, why are you letting her go? What is she going to do over there? She's going to be by herself. And so it was scary. I am proud to say that after I went to college, now we have 5 college graduates in our family, and one of them is a doctor. So I did something. So I'm very proud of that. But when I was already in college, like I was mentioning, I really did feel like, what am I doing? I didn't feel like I was prepared for that at all. I didn't think I was ready. So for the first couple semesters, college was difficult for me. But then one day I decided, I thought back to what helped me get into college, and I realized I needed help, and I needed to ask for help. And so I'm like, okay, I'm in this program. I'm paying for this program. What else does this program have to offer? So I went and I asked, and to no surprise, they're like, I know exactly how you feel. Everyone, that goes to college for the first time feels the same way. This is what we can offer you. We can do tutoring. We can set you up with a school counselor, which I already knew what they did because they did it in high school. And really asking for help is what helped me feel more comfortable in college. Asking for help and getting involved is what really helped me out. In that same department or in that same building where I went and met with school counselors, I also saw people meeting. I'm sorry. I saw, sorry about that. I saw people meeting and I wondered what they were meeting about. Like I saw students just hanging out, meeting, and I stepped in and they had clubs. So college had clubs too, like they did in high school. And so I was part of the Latino Business Association, where they taught you about business and administration. And then I became part of the school council because, I was away from home. I felt lonely. I wanted to participate. I wanted to do something. And so getting involved really helped me feel a little less lonely. And it reminded me too of where I felt comfortable. And I knew in high school, even though me participating in clubs was an excuse and a little getaway for, doing more and experiencing my high school years, I also remember that I was good at it. And so I decided to participate in a bunch of clubs and really get involved. So really my first high school times were really asking for help, getting involved, really just jumping out there and just saying, you know what, just do it. Just do it. Just go in there. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Just jump in there. I don't consider myself being too much of an extrovert, to be honest with you. I think I'm more of an introvert than I am an extrovert, but I also always thought, what's the next best move? What's the next best move? And to me, my very next best move was to always throw myself out there and ask for help and see what else was there for me to do and to offer. When I first went into college, I went in as an economics major because I really liked the finances. So I mixed the whole finances, business, having a business to, I compiled it as economics. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll just do economics as my major. Well, my first D was with Economics 101. So even though I was passionate about it, I didn't really understand it and I wasn't as good. And that really hit me, it's straight A student. And then here I am getting a D in something that I thought I really liked and I wanted to do. So that's where the tutoring happened. Unfortunately, I didn't meet the GPA to do economics. So thanks to the school counselor, I found the next best thing, which was global studies. So I majored in global studies, which was an emphasis in politics and economics. Again, I still wanted that politic and economic feel, but then it became a global studies major. And so I majored in global studies. Then I learned within global studies, I had to take a Greek and Roman culture class. And I learned that I really liked the Greek and Roman culture class. So then I was like, hey, what can I do with this? So they're like, well, we do have a major in classics. So I was like, okay, well, then I'll major in classics too. But I still wanted to emphasis in politics and economics. So that's how I ended up with global studies in classics major, in emphasis in economics and politics in that region. So very much still wanted to do economics, but every time I applied for jobs or I wanted to participate in events, I was getting called, or I was more attractive to tutoring jobs and coaching jobs. So I did tutoring for fifth graders, kindergarten, even PE classes for elementary students. So even though my passion was economic, finances, business, my strengths were really coaching and teaching and communication. So I went back to my career counselor and I was like, okay, so if I could do this, now what can I do? She's like, well, you want to either change your whole major, which by then I was already in my third year, or you can minor in this thing called applied psychology. And it was with an emphasis of education or emphasis in psychology and or counseling. And I chose emphasis in counseling. And that's how I ended up with my minor in applied psychology with emphasis in counseling. And that's kind of how I ended up where, that's how I ended up, you know, in my future jobs. I ended up doing counseling work and coaching. And so I did a lot of teaching. I got an internship through that same program, again, asking questions, getting involved in that program. They had a list of internships, and one of the internships was working for the housing authority. And so I worked in their youth department. So I was in charge of picking up the students from their schools and taking them to the centers and help them with their homework, help them with computer classes. I helped them. We brought in boys, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. We did events for them, anything to help them stay safe and not go elsewhere and do other things, and really keep them safe and involved. And I found out I really liked it. So I really like that type of work. And so thereafter, every job that I tried to apply for and every job I tried to get, I wanted to get it in working with youth and doing some type of coaching and mentoring. So I continued with teaching classes. It was time to graduate and applied for jobs in LA because I wanted to go back home. But I couldn't find anything. So I didn't find anything in LA, even though I kept looking. I took time off from class. So I sacrificed some class time, even though I was so close to graduation, to try to go to job fairs in LA to try and get jobs. And I would barely even get interviews. I couldn't find jobs. And then one day, Housing Authority offered me an actual job, even though it was part-time. And back then it was just $8 an hour. But I took it because I said, well, at least it's something. And while I was still trying to move to LA and trying to find jobs, my parents hit us with the news with my sister that they were going to get a divorce. So I was like, I cannot go back. Where am I going to go back? I don't want to live with my mom. I didn't want to live with my dad. I blamed one of them for what was going on. So I didn't want to be with them. So I said, okay, well, then I'm staying here in Santa Barbara and I'm looking to room with people. I had a boyfriend at the time. Actually, he's my husband now, but I did have a long distance relationship. And I was with my boyfriend throughout my college years. He was in Utah and I was in Santa Barbara, here in California. We met since we were in high school. And right before graduation, his family moved to Utah, but we continue to stay with that relationship. So I was in college. At the beginning, didn't know what I was doing and if I was doing the right thing. And then on top of that, I actually had a relationship that I really cared about. So it was quite the experiences for 4 years. But in 2010, before I graduated in February, he said, can I just move back to California? What do you think about me moving? Do you want to be serious about this? And my parents were divorcing. I couldn't find a job. And I said, yes, just come. We'll move in together. We'll figure something out. And one day before graduation, it was still already March, April, May 2010, close to, we were graduating in June 2010. I'm going down Craigslist, and I don't know if we still use Craigslist. I don't know if you guys know what Craigslist is, but there's this thing called Craigslist where you could find jobs and you found apartments and things for sale. And I got into Craigslist sometimes. Yeah. Okay, good. So I found this apartment, and I found an apartment in this place called Lompoc. 2 bedroom, 1 bath for $725. And I was paying maybe $1,600 just for a room in Santa Barbara. So $725 for 2 bedroom, 1 bath. I was like, yeah, this looks good. And my boyfriend was there with me. So I was visiting my parents when I found that out. And I was like, hey, what do you think? He's like, well, I'm like, do you want to move in together? And he's like, well, that's kind of why I came. I'm serious about this relationship. So I'm so thankful for my husband, which is why he's my husband now. Because, he was very supportive and waited for me all those years. And I lied to my mom, and I was like, Mom, I have a midterm. I'm going to drop him off. Because of course they still didn't think that him, he wouldn't come and visit me. I don't know what they thought, how our relationship was, but they didn't know about me going to Utah or him coming to visit me here in college. So I told him I'm going to go drop him off where he's staying, because he was staying with friends at the time. He had already come back from Utah and I was still in college. And I'm going to go drop him off, and I'm going back to Santa Barbara because I need to study for a test. But instead of doing that, we went straight to Lompoc. And we were driving, we passed Santa Barbara, and I had never been that far. It was 8 o'clock. It was foggy. We were on the 101, but then you have to turn to the 1. And the 1 is a windy road for about 20 miles. And it's foggy, and it looks scary. And it looks like we're going in the middle of nowhere. And we're like, what are we doing? But like everything else I experienced in the beginning, I was like, you know what? I'm sure we're going to find a city. I'm sure we're going to find civilization in the midst of all of this fog, which translates to our cliche words that say there's going to always be a rainbow at the end of the storm, or light at the end of the tunnel. And of course, that is very true. So we kept on going. And the first thing we read, it says, the city of arts and flowers. And we saw a hospital. And I remember the first thing my husband told me, well, my boyfriend at the time, he's like, look, that's where our kids are going to be born. I don't forget that. He told me that. And we applied, and we got accepted to this apartment. I didn't really have a job because, it was just $8 an hour. And now we were, driving an hour, because what I did, I also Googled, and I was like, or MapQuested, I'm sorry. Now, who uses MapQuest? I'm throwing another word there. There you go. I'm so sorry. I was mentioning in the beginning, I don't think most of you heard, but a little away from what I was talking about. A couple weeks ago, my family got hit with COVID, and so I still have this lingering cough. So I apologize if I have to pause and cough. It kind of comes out of nowhere sometimes. So I apologize for that. But anyways, before I said yes to this apartment hunting, I started checking MapQuest. I'm like, how far away is Santa Barbara from Lompoc? And it showed it was 56 miles away from the housing authority. So I was like, 56 miles, which is an hour. It said exactly an hour that it was going to be. I'm like, well, in LA with the traffic, I'm probably going to be hitting the same thing. So might as well, yeah, sure, let's go for it. Even though back then it was just $8 an hour. So I really just had pocket change. But of course, the attitude, the pattern that you guys are going to see that I'm having, it's like, we'll figure it out kind of thing. And so we did. When he came back with a vision that his dad was an auto glass technician. So he came back with a vision that he was going to start an auto glass business. So he said, if we move, I can start an auto glass business over there. We searched, and there really wasn't. There was one auto glass in Lompoc and one in the nearest city called Santa Maria, which is 30 miles still out of Lompoc. And we're like, okay, let's do it. But we needed to buy equipment. So we asked my mom for a loan. Legitimately, we asked my mom for a loan. So she loaned us some money so we can buy the equipment. However, she didn't know that we were looking for this apartment. So she didn't know that I was going to move out. During that same conversation, I opened up to them and I said the truth. And I was like, you know what? I cannot go back. I don't feel comfortable going back with either of you guys. You guys are divorcing. I don't want to be in the middle of it. I cannot find a job. So we're moving in together. And of course, typical Latino parents, right? What are you doing? You know, this is not how I raised you, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end, we moved and they were supported at the end. My mom did give us the loan and we started this business. And so we did it, and I worked for the housing authority. Well, 1 month into moving in July 2010, I get in a car accident. I was in the one, I was leaving work. I had left work early that day. So even though I left at 8, so I would have been in that freeway around 8:45. This time I left a little earlier. So it was around 8 when I was in that road. So it was still dark. And so my car flipped 6 times. And it was a head-on collision. My car did have a name, by the way. Her name was Samantha. It was a Honda CRV. I do name my cars. And so that was my very first car that I had, and I totaled it. I came out of that accident with nothing but scratches. And I did get a burn in my arm from the airbag deflating. And in my abdomen, I got the scratches, or the cuts, I should say, from the glass because I couldn't open the doors. All the airbags had, apparently the CRVs or the Hondas come equipped with airbags all around. So the airbags didn't let me open the doors or anything. So I had to dig myself out of there. And I got out and I was down a cliff and I had to get out through a window. And that's how I ended up with glass all over me. And, you know, that was an eye opener for me. It was my second chance that I got to do things right. That grudge that I had with my parents, it completely flipped, and I was more appreciative of life. And it really was a thing where, yes, I'm gonna live life like, how can I say it? I always had goals and I always had visions, but I really made it a point to do something with my life after that. And I was like, okay, let me look for a better job. My husband was like, we need to do better. while we were out of work, I had to be out of work for a couple weeks. I couldn't go to work because of the accident. I had my burn, my back was killing me, and my work didn't want me to go to work right away because, legally they wanted me to take some time off, etc. So while my husband was doing Baleado Glass, even though that first month we really struggled to pay our rent because we were not getting many jobs, we really didn't know the area. He was doing little things here and there. So he worked as a handyman for a little bit. He worked, he had just random jobs. And I said, we need to do better. So here I am with a burn arm just a week and a half after my surgery and my back killing me. We didn't have internet. We were not equipped with computer or anything like that. We didn't have the luxury to have that. We barely were paying our rent with pennies and quarters. So I go to a library and I apply for jobs. September 2013, well, before that, right after. So I had just been in the accident maybe 3-4 weeks, and I am taking a bath. I don't want my arm to get wet. I'm not taking a shower. I'm taking a bath, and a call comes in, and I was getting a phone interview for a position. And apparently I did good, because then they called me in for an interview, and then they called me for another interview. And I ended up working for this place called Casa Pacifica as a child and family specialist. So I worked with at-risk youth. I was on call. I was taking calls. I worked with youth who were in the foster care system in juvenile hall. And so I did a lot of coaching and mentoring for them. So my goal was to help stay in a secure place and not go back to juvenile hall or not keep jumping from foster care to foster care. And they were as young as 6 and as old as 17 years old. And again, this was September 2010. So at that time, I was still 21. So dates are important to me because I was still 21 and I was taking care of youth. And I was a youth myself because federal law says you're a youth from 16 to 25. So I was a youth myself doing this, but that was my passion. I helped them with coping skills. I helped them how to share their feelings, their emotions, how to communicate with others. I learned a lot about communication with my minor as psychology, so I tried to give them that. And a lot of my kids, and I call them my kids, a lot of my kids did graduate. And I see them now and they're doing good. Some of them do have their own families now. It was a great job. But I was still a youth taking care of a youth. So it was too much for me. So I decided to do something where it didn't require too much of me. So I thought that jumping into another position was going to be a little less demanding. Luckily, Denise did work for the county at that time, and she told me about a position called the Workforce Services Counselor, which was more kind of like a career counselor, helping people with resume interview preparation. And I applied for that job and I got it. And I worked with people, with veterans, at-risk youth, people with disabilities, and I helped them with resume writing, interview preparation. And there it did feel a little bit like me, in the sense that I struggled in the beginning with jobs. I struggled financially. And so I really was giving hope to someone else who was in that other position. So it felt more for me. And here I thought that I was going to be sacrificing money, but in fact, it was more money. And I didn't have to travel, because in the other job I was traveling, and it worked out. Little did I know, I was more like, okay, we'll see what this has to offer. I want something better, and it was extremely better. During that time, when I got that job, we had to close down Baleado Glass. So even though we already had value added glass, we had to close it. It really wasn't working for us. My husband went and worked somewhere else. He had 3 jobs. After that, we had to close down our business. And we just started doing regular jobs. So we started working our jobs, 8 to 5 jobs. I tried to work as hard as I could in this job that I was now as a workforce service counselor, helping individuals with resume writing, helping them find jobs. I took the initiative to make partnerships with a lot of businesses in town, businesses like small and pops businesses, Walmart, and say, hey, I have this individual here. They need a job. Do you mind interviewing them? Can you get them a job? And it worked out. I really try my best to get Goodwill on the map, because what people thought about Goodwill was that Goodwill was just a thrift store, and they didn't know what Goodwill had to offer. And I made sure that Lompoc knew what Goodwill was. 6 months into me having that position, there is a manager position that comes up in Goodwill. And even though my manager asked me if I wanted to do it and apply for it, I said no, because I didn't think I was fit for that position. I was too scared. I was too scared to be in a management position at that time. So I said no to it, but I still worked hard. I worked hard, like if people, whether people could see me working hard or even if people were not looking, I still worked hard. And I moved up from there. I became a lead. I became a lead in the office. Little by little, Goodwill started getting more grants, more opportunity for more things to open up. At the time, we were just working with people with disabilities, and that's when the grant for veterans came, and that's where the grants for at-risk youth came. I'm sorry. And so Goodwill really started moving on up from there. And in 2016, I got offered the manager position. And this time she didn't even ask me. She said, when you were working there within 6 months, you worked so hard and you showed so much passion. I wanted you in that position. So now I'm not going to ask you. I'm just going to give it to you. So in 2006, I became a workforce services manager. At that time, my son was also born. So my son was born. We were excited to have to be pregnant. We went to doctor's appointment. Things were always good. My ultrasounds were always good. And then in November 2016, he was born. And 6 hours after his birth, they took him away from my room, which was 3 a.m. for further checkup because he didn't want to eat. They kept me waiting for 2 hours, and then they came back and they said that my son had a heart condition. My son passed away 3 times in that room in the NICU, even though really our hospital doesn't have a NICU. And they didn't know what really was wrong with him, except that there was something wrong with his heart. I'm so thankful that his pediatrician, or the pediatrician at the time on call, she really fought for him. A helicopter came and they took him to the nearest hospital in Santa Barbara, where they did further checkups. And in fact, they confirmed that he did have a heart condition called transposition of the great arteries and 3 other conditions. And it was way too advanced for them. So they called in UCLA. And UCLA came and got him, and he was 24 hours old, and I was 24 hours of giving birth, and we were already in UCLA. And that's when they broke the news that his condition was a lot more than we expected it to be. I'm so sorry. And he underwent surgery at just 6 days old. He had a heart surgery. And it was the scariest day of my life. I had a child. I had a good job. I had purchased my home. I forgot to mention the year before that we purchased that home. So 5 years into coming to Lompoc, and we're like, we have it together. We have good jobs. We're working from home, or we're working. We have our home, and we have our son. Wow, perfect family. And then we got hit with the scariest news that our son might or might not live and might or might not be here with us. He got a surgery at 6 days old, and they said that soon another surgery might happen. It was at 3 months old, he had another heart surgery. And at 8 months old, he had another heart surgery. But even though it was the scariest time of my life, it was also the one time in my life that I felt like I had a purpose to fulfill. I finally felt alive during those times. I had something to live for. I had to try for someone. I couldn't give up. I had to have all these struggles and all these tribulations that I was going through, but I was doing it for him. So he really came to change our life completely with all his struggles that he went through. He had 3 heart surgeries before he turned 1 year old. During all that time, my husband was going through court dates and immigration case. So while he was going through all of that, we also were thinking that we might have to be raising our son in a whole new different country. And we might be ending up in Mexico with a son who had a heart condition. So how are we going to do this? We had to stay positive through all that time. We had to stay faithful. We had to stay hopeful. Being positive was one of things that kept us going. We had to stay. And I know it sounds like a cliche when I say we had to stay, but I mean it. We had to stay positive. We recorded, or not recorded, but we really had smiled. While he was going into surgery, we were taking pictures. And I know it sounds weird, but that was our way of being positive. We had to be positive. And we promised our son that if he stayed with us, that we would make it adventurous and fun for him. And that's what we did. While my son was born, after they told us, you know what, he cannot be in daycares, he cannot get sick. If he gets sick, it could be fatal. So we're like, okay, let's take another leap of faith. We've already moved out of our home. We had no help here in Lompoc. We were by ourselves. We had our business. We quit our business to start something. We started from scratch in this new place. Let's take another leap of faith. And one of us had to stay home to take care of our son. I had a good job. My husband was a salesman. So we said, what about Valley Auto Glass again? It didn't work the first time, but let's not give up. Let's keep on trying. If we didn't do it the first time, let's go ahead and learn from that. And let's do it again. And we did. And we opened up Valley Auto Glass again. We got our license again. Thankfully, through my husband's networking, through his job as a salesman, we ended up getting little jobs here and there. We did mobile service he just went to people's home. We didn't have our shop. When we would give people the address to come, we would give our home address. And of course, you could tell people were like, sometimes they'll pass by, and we knew because we knew the appointment was for a Honda Accord, and a Honda Accord passed, and it just kept going because we were working out of our garage and people didn't feel comfortable. So we promoted more mobile service. Thankfully, Goodwill waited for me for 7 months. And my 6 months, and my 7th month, I went back to work when my son was 7 months old. And then at 8 months, I left the job on leave again because he had his surgery. And at 9 months is when I officially went back full time, even though full time was just 32 hours. I needed to wanted to stay home at least one day. And my husband took my son to work at 9 months old. So he did mobile work and took care of my son at the same time. And he worked with him by himself, did jobs. I tried my best to try to, while I was in the office, there were no clients. I answered phone calls and I scheduled appointments. And when I got out of work and I put our son down at 12 a.m., I was doing our bookkeeping and logging things in. So I worked a lot while I was also working. I did a lot of things after school, after work, at the same time. And in 2020, we decided that if we were going to do something, we had to give our 100% in what we did. If we wanted to accomplish our goals and wanted to be what we call successful, we wanted to give 100%. So during the middle of the pandemic, I said, I'm just going to do it. And I quit my job. I quit my job as a workforce manager, getting paid good money, having my own office, traveling to different offices, hoping that I'll be CEO, because that was my thing. I wanted to be CEO of Goodwill. But instead, I changed all of that and traded all of that for being a CEO in a mom and pop's business. And in 2020, we also opened up our storefront. And so now we have our shop. And we are the only auto glass in Lompoc. In 50,000 people. We went to Palm Springs last weekend and we were looking how many auto glass are here. And Palm Springs is almost the same population as Lompoc. And there were 5 auto glass over there and we're the only ones in Lompoc. And that really hit me. Wow. We went through all of that. It took us 10 years to open up Valley Auto Glass again and be to where we're at now. We attend mixers, we help in the community, we donate turkeys, we donate presents for kids that need it, we help the food bank, and it's Valley Auto Glass does that. Valley Auto Glass does that. It was a struggle, but I'm proud to be where we're at now. And I think a lot of why we are where we're at now is because we had faith that things were always going to be okay. We had this very much attitude like, let's just do it. But not like in an irresponsible way. It was more like, oh, let's do it. It's going to be okay. Let's do it. We worked hard. We sacrificed whatever we had to sacrifice. We were patient through all the struggles that we went through. And most importantly, we had passions and we had our strengths and we put it together. My passion and my strengths were 2 different things, but I put them together and they complemented each other. And that is why we're here now. I noticed the time a little bit, so I skipped some stuff, to be honest with you guys. I'm sorry, I didn't expect it to be this late. But in a nutshell, that's what brought us to where we're at now. Basically, not giving up. It sounds like cliche, but it's very true. Definitely don't give up through all the struggles and the tribulations. We cried, but we got back up again. I'm a Christian now. I go to church. I participate in our church. So on top of being in Goodwill, doing Valley Auto Glass, I also participated and was a board member in our church. So I am very thankful, and I always say thank God for everything. There's always a reason for things that happen, and there's always a perfect plan out there. You just need to go with the flow and just do it. So I think that's it. Thank
you, Ingrid, for sharing your story. We have some comments. We have, wow, you're so strong and amazing. Your story of resiliency is so inspiring. More yes, wow, I agree. Your story is also helping me understand myself, my own struggles, and know that life honestly does come with its struggles and obstacles, but little by little, good things will come. So we have some thank yous. Do we have any questions? We have a couple of minutes left. Do you have any questions for Ingrid? You can unmute yourself. You can raise your hand. You can type it in the chat.
You're welcome. Thank you for hearing me out. Of course, I'm reading the comments as they're coming.
Ingrid, I know part of what you didn't share is that you graduated without debt. you applied to a lot of scholarships. Can you give us some tips on that? It's scholarship season coming up here.
Yeah, I have no college debt. I applied to a lot of scholarships and a lot of grants. It goes back to what I was mentioning, where I admitted that I needed help. So I asked questions, and I was presented with grants and scholarships. And I learned that applying for grants and scholarship was not your typical, oh, you know, I don't want to write an essay. When I told you guys I went to tutoring, I went to tutoring for basic things, even writing skills. So believe me, writing was not my forte. So when I thought about scholarships, I thought, oh, I'm going to yet again have to write another essay and try to convince people as to why I deserve this. But if you really do your research, you really ask for help, you really get out there, you'll learn that there's many different types of grants and scholarships that don't require you doing, I want to say, too much work, but that still requires something from you. Of course, having good grades, doing a little something, even a simple video. I remember one of them for me was I needed to do a video of my dorm and where I was at and how things look like, what was my experience, kind of what I'm doing now. And it was 3 to 5 minutes, and that's all I did. And I sent it over, and here I am, I got the grant. So really do your research. Don't just think that in order for you to get help, you have to do this outrageous and crazy things and so much of your time, and you're thinking, I'm already doing all of this, and now on top of that, do this. One, obviously it's worth it, because then you get, you know, like me, hopefully, you know, no debt or very little debt. And on the other hand, it might not be as hard as you might think it is.
Well, thank you for sharing. And then we have a question too from Jareli. Are you content with your life right now, or are there more goals or dreams that you're trying to achieve?
You know, it's funny. I am content. How can I put this? I'm content. I'm happy. I don't know. I cannot talk, but I know there's always more. So yes, I'm happy, but yes, I do have more goals. Right now, my goals are in Baleado Glass. So even though I'm taking care of the community now with Baleado Glass, I want to see what other contracts I can get. I'm thinking if I was able to do that in Goodwill, and I got all these grants and all these contracts and work with the city and the county, when first we just did it very small and then we got it that big, what more can I do with Baleado Glass? And yeah, I'm thinking about more things for myself. So I think there's always opportunity for more. But I do feel like I can finally breathe more comfortably now. I'm not rushing and running like I used to be. So I guess I'm giving you 2 answers, but I am content. I'm in peace now, but I also know that there's more.
Cool. And then Vanessa asks how your son is doing.
Oh, he's doing amazing. He's in school now. They told us that he was probably going to be delayed. He wasn't going to learn how to do a lot of things. You know, that some things were going to be difficult for him. Complete opposite. I was just mentioning in the beginning of the call, he's supposed to be in pre-K because he's 4 years old, but he's actually in kindergarten. So they advanced them. So that's amazing. And we went to his cardiologist. We had cardiologist visits every 6 months, then every year. And doctor said that he is too healthy for him to see him. So we're going to visit the cardiologist in 2 years from now. So my son is doing amazing. Yes. Thank you for asking. He's a blessing. He definitely is.
Good to hear. We had some heart emojis and some clapping emojis in response to that. If you could give your younger self advice, what would you say? From Jeremy.
I would say, it's gonna be okay. You guys probably hear it often, and believe me, it's true. It's going to be okay. Don't try to eliminate your struggles. Go through them. You wish, and in my case, like I told you guys, I'm a Christian, so I pray, and some of us maybe pray like, please take away this struggle from me. Don't do it. Don't do it. If anything, embrace the struggles, because the struggles are what brings you to where you're at today. Don't dwell on the struggles. Don't do it. Embrace your struggle. Really do. Because your struggles are they're the ones that are gonna make you stronger. We hear it in the movies, we hear it in the radio, but take it from me. Embrace them. Embrace them, really embrace them. Don't dwell on the struggles. Really don't. Be thankful that you have them.
Thank you. And then Tam asked if you keep a journal of your events throughout life.
Yes. Yes, I forgot to mention that. I did. I kept a journal of my events. I also journaled my goals. I always had short-term goals. I wanted to speak to you guys with dates, because then if I speak with you guys in dates, you guys will realize that every 5 years or so I accomplished a goal. But that was my point. I had short-term goals in that sense. Like, I'm like, okay, in 5 years, this is what I want. This is and I wrote them down. In fact, my husband and I say that we want to write a book. So we have everything here. We just kind of have to do it. So yeah, journaling is important, and it really helps. My husband taught me that, actually. He's the one that learned it, and he did it. And so I followed, and that was one of the activities we did together. So journaling, it helps. Yeah.
We have really needed to hear that reminder that everything is going to be okay and to embrace the struggles. Sada says, thank you, and thank you for being so open and vulnerable and sharing your story. Your story is so inspiring and powerful. Can't wait to read your book. We have a book club. Maybe we can have it for Rava's book club in the future.
So now I know that it would be that someone will read it. So that's good.
You have an audience.
At least if you influence one person, then you're doing a big thing. So yay.
Yeah, there you go.
So thank you.
Maybe in 5 years.
Yeah.
Thank you once again for sharing your story. I hope you get well soon from that cough. We understand if students need to log off if they have a 1 o'clock class. We recognize the power in sharing your story and the importance of sharing our stories and of becoming, and to show how that growth happens. So thank you so much, Ingrid, for sharing your story with us today. For those of you that are here, if you can give like a thumbs up or a clapping emoji or celebration heart emoji to Ingrid.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Zara or Dustin, do you have anything else you want to add?
I just want to say, thanks for sharing your story. And I think it's so important because as first generation college students, a lot of times we think once we graduate, okay, everything's going to happen for us, right? But sometimes it's important to extend that timeline, rewrite that script that you wrote for yourself, because life doesn't follow that script all the time. You have to be ready for some pitfalls and to get back up again. And I think I had to learn that the hard way, but thanks to you sharing your story, I think our students can realize that, there are going to be some hiccups along the road,
yeah,
but
definitely.
you'll eventually get there.
That's right. That's right.
Like everybody else, I want to thank you for sharing your story, for being vulnerable, for sharing some of the intimate details. I know, some of us did struggle with strict parents, and
Yeah.
we don't want to admit that we had to lie to them sometimes.
Yeah.
But we do appreciate your honesty and taking the time out. Like, the story was great, but also just your willingness to do this. And you mentioned, it's been a while since you've been on Zoom and you were feeling a little nervous. So,
Yeah.
thank you for agreeing to do this. Thank you, Denise, for arranging it. And we hope to continue to hear great stuff, great things about you, and look forward to reading that book as well.
Thank you. I'm glad I was here, because then you guys are motivating me to actually do the book, and I guess I have content, and so thank you just as much as hopefully you learned something from me. I really do want to mention that you guys really taught me some things too, so I appreciate you guys listening to me and commenting, and I know that your thank yous are really genuine. And so I appreciate that. It really was a reminder of everything that I've been through. And I guess I really did lift up to the whole embrace your struggles and just do it and keep on going, because you guys are reminding me that that's really true. So thank you.
All right, I'm going to stop this recording.